Avro Vulcan XH558. The Spirit of Great Britain is the only airworthy example of the 134 Avro Vulcan V bombers that were operated by the Royal Air Force from 1953 until 1985. Vulcan XH558 served with the RAF between 1960 and 1985 in the bomber, maritime reconnaissance and air-to-air refuelling roles. The RAF operated XH558 as a display aircraft from 1986 until 1992, when budget cuts forced its retirement. It is operated by the Vulcan to the Sky Trust as a display aircraft, funded entirely by charitable donations and the UK Heritage Lottery Fund. It is registered with the United Kingdom's Civil Aviation Authority as G-VLCN but has an exemption to fly in Royal Air Force markings as XH558. Royal Air Force, XH558, the 12th Vulcan B-2 built, first flew in 1960 and was delivered to No. 230 Operational Conversion Unit RAF at RAF Waddington on July 1, 1960. Almost immediately the aircraft moved with 230 OCU to RAF Finningley, where the aircraft spent some 8 years before returning to Lincolnshire in 1968. Most of its operational service was with the units of the Waddington Wing, including No. 50 Squadron RAF. The aircraft was one of 9 converted to a Steradian II maritime radar reconnaissance configuration in 1973 and flew with 27 SQN. For the maritime reconnaissance role, the terrain-following radar was removed and replaced by LORANC equipment. XH558 was subsequently one of 6 Vulcans converted to the aerial refuelling variant K2 in 1982. The aerial refuelling variant was assessed on May 1, 1982. Go-ahead for modification was given 3 days later, and the first aircraft made its maiden flight on June 18, 1982 and flew to Waddington 5 days later. XH558 was returned to standard B-2 configuration in 1985 and was the last Vulcan in service, largely due to the fact that it had seen little service as a low-level bomber and had spent considerable time grounded due to an engine explosion during a routine pre-flight start around 1970, which damaged the airframe, taking many years to repair. From 1986 to 1992, XH558 was the RAF's display aircraft, until budget cuts forced it to be grounded again. After service with the Royal Air Force, the aircraft and most of the RAF spare parts for the Vulcan were sold to C. Walton Limited and delivered by air to Bruntingthorpe Aerodrome on March 23, 1993. The aircraft was kept in a serviceable condition and would undertake fast taxi runs along Bruntingthorpe's main runway. Restoration to flight. The engineering staff of the Vulcan Operating Company worked to return Vulcan XH558 to flight, with the first test flight taking place on October 18, 2007. They were supported by the Vulcan to the Sky Club, a supporters and fundraising organization. Though the website carried an announcement on August 1, 2006 that the project was in danger of being abandoned due to lack of finance, the target of raising the remaining £1.2 million was achieved on August 31, 2006, thanks to a high-profile publicity campaign orchestrated by the supporters club, Vulcan to the Sky Club. Time had almost run out for XH558 when Sir Jack Hayward, a British philanthropist, donated £500,000, which topped off the £860,000 already raised by Vulcan to the Sky Club and friends. Although the aircraft restoration was nearly complete, the aircraft was not ready for the flypast down the Mall in London for the 25th anniversary of the Falklands conflict on June 17, 2007 or the RAF Waddington Airshow and the Royal International Air Tattoo. It was intended that the Vulcan would fly during at least one UK air show during the 2007 season, but due to delays in returning the aircraft to flight, mainly down to delays in the return of refurbished flight-critical components, the aircraft was not ready for the display season. On August 16, 2007, the aircraft started engine testing on the airfield at Bruntingthorpe. On the next day, XH558's No. 3 Rolls-Royce Olympus 202 jet engine was run for the first time in over 20 years. This is a different engine from that used by XH558 during its final season with the RAF's Vulcan display flight in 1992. with all four of the Vulcan's original Olympus 202 engines having been replaced by zero-hour units which had been stored since 1982. The VTS team also has another four fully inhibited engines in stock. The removed engines were either scrapped, sectioned for display or passed on to VRT's XL426 at Southend. Another milestone in the restoration project was achieved on August 22, 2007, when all four of XH558's Olympus engines were run at nearly full power settings, for short intervals. The first post-restoration flight, which lasted 34 minutes, took place on October 18, 2007. On April 14, 2008, the Vulcan flew from Bruntingthorpe to RAF Cottesmore to have a compass swing and test flights. Whilst in mid-air, the plane called Mayday after believing the auxiliary power unit was on fire. It landed safely at Cottesmore and the cause was later discovered to be an electrical fault. On April 16, a further 2-hour test flight was planned to perform straight-line testing of avionics. The flight was scheduled to go between Cambridge and Marham, but this was abandoned when one of XH558's undercarriage doors failed to close due to an electrical micro-switch malfunction and the aircraft made a safe return to Bruntingthorpe Airfield. During part of May 2008, XH558 resided at RAF Coningsby where it underwent further testing, and while there took part in a photo call with the Lancaster and a Typhoon. On June 9, 2008, XH558 flew its final test flight and was granted on July 3, by the CAA, its permit to fly at 16:05. At 17:05, it launched for RAF Waddington where it flew its airshow routine, in front of Civil Aviation Authority of the United Kingdom examiners who then issued its DAF for the RAF Waddington Airshow in the first week of July. On March 29, 2011, XH558 landed at its new home Robin Hood Airport, Doncaster, Sheffield. This location is the former RAF Finningley Airbase where XH558 was previously based for 8 years during the 1960s. The aircraft will be stored and maintained in the hangar that previously provided the same maintenance workshop nearly 50 years earlier. The longer-term aim is to make the authorized modifications that will allow fatigue life to match expected engine life, with both expiring at about the same time in the period 2013 to 2015, depending on fatigue index usage and engine cycle usage. The Vulcan howl, a serendipitous arrangement in air intakes, causes some Vulcan airframes to emit a distinctive howl, when the engines are at approximately 90% power. This noise is produced by XH558, and is a popular feature of its flypasts at public air shows. Display seasons. 2008. On July 5, 2008, XH558 performed the first post-restoration display at RAF Waddington with a flypast with the Avro Lancaster of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, and then a solo display. Due to engine life restrictions plus a fuel bill of £3,200 per hour, the yearly flying hours for XH558 are limited to approximately 70. In 2008, 3 appearances were cancelled due to technical problems, 2 due to bad weather and 3 due to a fault in number 2 engine. 2009. 2010. As the aircraft operates under visual flight rules, it cannot fly through cloud to higher altitudes where turbulence is lower, as this would require instrument flight rules certification. Flying VFR in lower, often turbulent, air adds to airframe fatigue and this increases fatigue index consumption. In 2010 the aircraft was therefore limited to between 30 and 40 hours flight time, to help reduce airfare usage and preserve the airframe. As a result, the number of airshow appearances were fewer than in 2009. Some 2-day fly-in shows were limited to just 1 appearance, with the first day being given preference to allow the second day to act as a reserve in case of technical or weather difficulties. 2011. The schedule of appearances for the 2011 season, which was subject to weather and serviceability. They were, 2012, after extensive servicing over the 2011 to 2012 winter, XH558 had its CAA certificate renewed in April 2012, in time to perform a flypast at the dedication of the Falklands Memorial at the National Memorial Arboretum on May 21. During takeoff from Robin Hood Airport for a practice flight on May 28, both port engines failed. The failure was attributed to ingestion of silica gel desiccant bags. Damage sustained was limited to the engines and no structural damage was found. Both port engines were deemed beyond repair and replaced with engines in the trussed stocks. The aircraft was returned to flight for the 2012 Farnborough International Airshow, and has subsequently displayed throughout the 2012 season. 2013, on October 12, 2012, it was announced by Vulcan to the Sky that 2013 was likely to be the last flying season for the Vulcan, 6 years after her first post-restoration flight. Reasons cited for the decision to end flight are due to the Vulcan requiring complex wing leading-edge skin reinforcement, and a lack of spare engines after the incident in May 2012 when 2 engines were damaged beyond repair and the last working spares were used to replace them. However, on January 25, 2013, it was announced that wing modification investigations have begun after having contracted Cranfield Aerospace, who would extend her flying period beyond 2013. It was featured at the RNAS Vulcan's Air Day in July 2013. Later on in the year, it was confirmed that the wing modification was viable and a fundraising campaign referred to as Operation 2015 was launched. With sufficient funding raised, the modification was enacted, and in March 2014 the necessary modification was completed, extending XH558's flying hours. 2014, XH558 is confirmed as the highlight of the Armed Forces Day celebrations, taking place at Scarborough on June 28, 2014. XH558 performed at the Goodwood Festival of Speed at 1300 hours on Saturday 28 June 2014. XH558 performed at the Waddington International Air Show. XH558 flew in the last available time slot of the Friday 18 July Farnborough International Air Show 2014. XH558 performed at the Newcastle Air Show in Newcastle, Company Down, Ireland on Saturday 9 August 2014. XH558 flew together with the last 2 airworthy Lancaster bombers on August 21, 2014 to mark the turf-cutting ceremony of the new Bomber Command Memorial at Knick Hill. XH558 performed at the Bournemouth Air Festival on Saturday 30 August and Sunday 31 August 2014. XH558 performed at the Shoreham Air Show over Shoreham Airport on Saturday 30 August 2014. XH558 performed at the Scottish Air Show over Ayr on Saturday 6 September 2014. XH558 performed at the Dewford Air Show on Saturday 13 September 2014. XH558 performed at the Southport Air Show on Sunday 21 September 2014. It was listed on the Saturday lineup but had to be rescheduled to the Sunday due to poor weather at home airfield. Operators, United Kingdom, Royal Air Force, No. 27 Squadron RAF, No. 50 Squadron RAF, No. 55 Squadron RAF, No. 230 Operational Conversion Unit RAF, No. 617 Squadron RAF Scampton, No. 35 Squadron RAF Scampton, No. 82 Squadron RAF Scampton. Vulcan to the Sky Trust, funding concerns. On September 9, 2008, the chief executive of the Vulcan to the Sky Trust, Dr. Robert Pleeming, announced on XH558's site that there were serious shortfalls in the aircraft's funds, suggesting that it looks as if the door may now be closing on the future of the Vulcan in flight. I think that anyone wishing to see a Vulcan in flight should do so as soon as possible. And that if we don't Euro unregistered trademark T achieve a significant change of circumstances soon, we want a Euro unregistered trademark T be able to carry out our role of a Euro honoring the past, inspiring the future Euro unregistered trademark, providing the once seen, never forgotten sight of XH558 in flight to a new generation. Stimulating interest in design and engineering, and telling people about an important period in our national Euro unregistered trademark's history. XH558 still has no commercial sponsors and relies on public donations and fundraising events organized by the Vulcan to the Sky Club members and supporters. In December 2008, The Vulcan to the Sky Trust set up a pledge scheme to raise £1 million by early 2009 to pay debts and cover servicing and operating costs for the 2009 display season. On March 6 the appeal reached its target. To fund maintenance work on XH558 that had to be brought forward from 2011, the Vulcan to the Sky Trust conducted a fresh campaign to raise further donations from the public. The Vulcan 50th birthday appeal sought to raise an additional £800,000 by the end of March 2010, of which £500,000 was needed by the end of February 2010 to enable work to begin. On February 24 more than £400,000 was donated by an anonymous benefactor, passing the survival level target for necessary engineering maintenance to begin. The VTST continues to run its 50th anniversary appeal for donations with the aim of building a sizable cushion of additional donations as a prudent contingency. In the absence of a major ongoing sponsor, the Trust now aims to keep raising funds from public donations year-round. See also, Vulcan Restoration Trust, Vulcan XL426 maintained in taxiable condition at Southend Airport, Avro Vulcan XH558, the only other taxiable Vulcan. References. External links, Vulcan to the Sky Trust, XH558, Your Vulcan Needs You, test flight at RAF Fairford on July 11, 2008 from the BBC. Takeoff at the Farnborough Air Show on July 20, 2008.